And we're back. So, I took a few moments off camera to go ahead and do these stability tests, and it appears that everything is in fact stable. In fact, I need to make a couple of minor adjustments. So much for actually being ready on time. So the first thing is to get these lined up properly. Okay, those are aligned properly. Next, I need a couple of landing lights. So, those there, and those there. I do believe the landing lights are physics-less objects. It sort of makes sense. So, I'm going under the assumption that those aren't going to add a bunch of air resistance to our vehicle. Go ahead and save this, and launch. Okay. So, thrust weight is 1.43. Let's go ahead and put this at about 90%. Get our maneuvers set up. And go ahead and launch. This thing is a lot lighter than I'm used to. So we have a nice morning launch. Somehow Jeb managed to get into the pilot seat. So, ascending off to the heavens on atop a pillar of flame and fire, or something. I was going to say something profound, but it didn't seem to actually work out. Anywho, already started a gravity turn, nice and early. And usually I don't like to go above under a pitch of 85, below 5 kilometers. It just sort of tends to muck up the works, and also it throws off the staging quite a bit. And parachute. And we need to be pitching over quite a bit at this point. Although potentially too much. So that is one of the downsides of doing sort of a too aggressive gravity turn. Luckily we are spinning around our middle axis, so it's not going to be a huge deal. We just need to fire the engines at the appropriate time. And, of course, if the proper pilot was sitting in the chair, that probably would not have happened. let's go ahead and get back on track with our gravity turn. So we're almost a kilometer a second still on these outside stages. 65. Now, one thing I would like to see, probably for MechJeb or any other sort of autopilot system, is instead of having to manually punch in, or either rely on the system that's already built in, or manually punch in pitch maneuvers, some way of saying at this altitude pitch to this setting, at next altitude, next setting sort of deal. So let's go ahead and start pitching over a little bit more aggressively, 45 degrees. And 35. Oh, and of course now we're only at half throttle. And 2, 1. Stage. Throttle up. So apoapse of 75 is going to be our target, and engine shutdown. Oh, wow. Unfortunately, I read my apoapse as my current altitude. Oops. Maneuver planner, here we go. This is what I'm after. So, this will just sort of save me a bunch of mucking about, and I can discuss other things that are slightly more exciting than trying to set up and execute maneuver nodes. So, for any who have played KSP before, I have packed 8 days, almost 9 days of snacks and other consumables. 5 hours of electricity. Realistically, you're not going to get a whole lot better until you can get some bigger batteries. But I do have solar panels on there, so they are going to be pretty much recharging. So I have basically 2 targets for this first mission. One is the Mun, the other is Minmus, and I'll leave it up to the, not really much of imagination needed, but the Mun is a 16-hour round trip, including a landing. So that sort of tells everyone where we're going. Also, the Delta V required to transfer circularize the orbit, land, take back off, and transfer back home. The entire operation for the Mun is 800 to transfer, or almost 900 to transfer. No, it's 850 or so to transfer. 500-ish to land, another 500-ish to take back off, and 200-ish to transfer home. Yeah, that's close enough to circular. Minmus has about another 100 meters a second delta V to transfer, along with about a 230 meter a second inclination maneuver that is optional, but I'm going to go ahead and do that anyway. And target. Unfortunately, I am running this at a slightly I hope I'm not about to crash. I'm not. That's 237. Descending node 235. So it's not going to make too much of a difference. Oh, of course, I can always just look over here. So that's in 27 minutes. Okay, let's go ahead and execute that next node. So anyway, back to the amount of delta V that you need to budget to do the landing or whatever. It ends up working out to be roughly 800 to 1,000 meters a second delta V cheaper to go to Minmus, even after all the inclination changes and whatnot. So, with that in mind, let's get everything transferred over properly. And actually 1100. The other concern that I have that I'm trying to take into account is avoiding the Kessler syndrome, which is the eventual accumulation of space junk, space debris, spent stages, dead satellites, etc., etc., in orbit. Or rather, I think the technical part is in any orbit. However, the sort of less strict definition is in any useful orbit. So, in order to help both prevent and combat that, any spent stages will ideally be shot either back into the atmosphere or into some sort of celestial object, celestial body. The Interstellar mod does add, or does change the seismometer from something you can simply run the experiment and get a number. The new seismometer requires an impact you set it up to record impacts, slam something, basically anything into it. You can use a decoupler that works. But as long as the object gets destroyed, any seismometers on that body get their science report taken care of, and then that data can be returned. So, 900 meters a second, 902.2, and we have 921 and a little bit probably. So this will put us into pretty much the perfect orbit. We have an encounter, but no periaps, which means we're going to be impacting. And we're also going to be burning most of the transfer state, or most of the ascent and transfer stage in that burn, so we're not going to be losing a bunch of delta V when we dump the stage. So anyway, back to the Kessler syndrome that I'm going to be trying to avoid. Basically anything that is not going to, I think anything that's not going to be despawned, items that get despawned, I think are, if something runs into a solar panel, the little flaky bits that fly off, those get despawned. But any sort of spent stages or satellites before they get to the point where they can't be deorbited or safely disposed of, I will do my best to safely dispose of them. What that does involve, though, is building in an extra 300 to 500 meters a second delta V in order to safely deorbit them. Of course, the other option with the Kerbal attachment system is send up a sort of resupply mission, probably some sort of a space plane or other reusable vehicle. Send it up with a bit of crew and get everything refueled. That tends to make things quite a bit more reusable instead of having to toss everything once it's been expended. And there's a Mun encounter, and here's a okay, Minimus Periaps is it's going to knock us into a slightly higher orbit. So 6 minutes from now, which is several days from our target, I'm going to make a second maneuver to accelerate slightly and dump the stage into the moon, seeing as how we don't have any space stations that are conveniently placed and need to be exploded. So, one of the sort of very small downsides to KSP is that the various rounding math, or math that gets rounded and whatnot, here we're actually we're so far away that simply rotating the vehicle is changing our encounter by tens of kilometers, and I think we're varying between 209 and 134 something. So almost an 80-kilometer difference, which is the difference between missing and hitting. And we have 0.2 meters a second delta V for this planned maneuver. So this just sort of goes to show even something as trivial as, say, opening an airlock that isn't completely depressurized can send you from literally hitting your target to missing your target completely if it's done in the right spot. So, the next thing we need is the... where is it? Warp Helper. So this doesn't really do anything mechanically. Let's encounter 2 days. So I'm going to use this to accelerate, or rather, hopefully not miss the sphere of influence transition. And it looks like everything's just about in place. We have rapidly burning through our snacks and other consumables. but we're pretty much here. So, figure 2.5, 3 days out, 2.5, 3 days back, a couple hours on the surface, and it is one heck of a road trip. So, with everything said and done, we should be just about there. So, waiting for the... There it is. Okay. So, I'm going to change the periaps to... let's put it at -1. We're going to put that at a fixed time of 30 seconds from now. Create node. So 2.8 meters a second delta V to do that. And we're already facing the proper direction. So 10 seconds. Remove all nodes. Create and execute. So this will safely dump our transfer stage into the planet, or moon rather. And just making sure that my sound is working. Okay, so average altitude on Minmus is, or rather, safe altitude on Minmus is 10 kilometers. Let's go ahead and adjust this a little bit more. And let's put this at -5, just to be safe. So, something like this, where we have a large transfer stage that is more or less expended, would be the perfect opportunity for a seismic experiment. However, seeing as how this is the first time we're actually going to Minmus, we don't have any way of already having a seismic experiment waiting for us. So, next we have we're going to use the ejection force. Basically, it's going to be roughly almost 7 tons difference in mass. So we can use the ejection force of this to help bump our periaps from 4.1 to 3.1. So that saved us a very small amount of delta V. So that stage is now deorbiting, and we can execute the next node with this engine. Ooh, we're in test. Apparently there was a test we needed to run with that engine. Oh well. We can always get it on the next mission or whatever. So, that engine is active. Next, we need Mystery Goo, 80 Science Material Bay, 200 Science, a Crew Report, 40 Science, and an EVA. Apparently, Jeb here was a little bit tired of sitting around in the rather cramped pilot seat, so finally gets to get out and do something exciting for a couple of minutes. Even if it is just collecting science data, but, you know, anything to be out and anything to be able to get out and stretch your legs for a few minutes. Okay. It's no temperature data yet, just yet. So, because we have something like 3,000, almost 5,000 delta V on this, I am going to go ahead and circularize. Can't speak right now. Okay, so I'm actually going to see if I can do a quick save here. Did that save? I hope that saved. Okay, so Jeb is on a safe trajectory. In case something happens, he will be able to get back with all this Delta V that he's got, although the science mission will be completely kaput at that point. And let's see, LV909, Poodle. Huh. More profile, orbiting. Oh well. Okay, so nothing actually there. Let's go ahead and get back to Jeb. So, in case anyone is wondering, I am running this in full resolution windowed mode, so I can't actually click anything below where my mouse is right now, which is why I can't get to the nav ball, which is a little problematic, but not overly so. Okay, so let's circularize at periapps, create node, execute next node. So 157.8 meters a second delta V here, and we have absolutely tons. Something I probably will end up considering. Here's something interesting. So we have a, let's see, we have that there. The Mun's there. That's the Mun. Okay, Jeb was actually about to call in a very interesting report of a object flying a little bit too close to home, but with a little bit of recalculation, it turns out to be the Mun. Okie dokie, so let's go ahead and finish this maneuver node, or finish this burn. So I do have what is this, 5 hours of power. So realistically, 2-ish hours of power once I get the lights on and everything, including safety margins. So this is space just over. And let's go ahead and do some material bay and mystery goo. Hooray for a lot more science. So, do we have a crew report? Yes, we do currently have a crew report. So, EVA report, minimal swellens, and collect, yes, remove that. that data. Yes, remove. And I think for the next mission, or basically as soon as Jeb gets back, he's going to mention the lack of lights on the flight suits. Or EVA suits, rather. I don't think you would want to be wearing your flight suit out in space. Okay, and the slopes, that one's always hard to get. So let's board. And log temperature, yes we can. Okay, we are surface horizontal speed, centricity, inclination, so we're actually orbiting backwards. Minor oversight on our part, but no big deal. Yes, we are in fact orbiting backwards. So, considering that I do have, let's see, would metric tons be an appropriate unit of measurement for this? I believe somehow, technically, metric tons of delta V would be an appropriate unit of, or rather, metric tons would be an appropriate unit of measurement of the amount of delta V that we have currently. So, with that in mind, let's go ahead and the slopes. See about getting a little bit more a couple more EVA reports. Midwinds, highlands, EVA report, and slopes. Seem to already have that one. And dump that. EVA. Come on, Jeb. And the slow ones. So the radiation accumulated dose and radiation status are all from Interstellar. And I do believe that is a per mission dose instead of a per Kerbal dose, otherwise it would actually be kind of bad. Okay, let's go ahead and force this here. One of the sort of interim projects that I'm going to be doing is a Minmus refueling station. Considering that the delta V required to launch and land is relatively low. It does make for sort of the ideal landing or refueling point. And I can always do some fancy inclination changes and whatnot to get a Kerbal station on the same inclination as Minmus and just have to transfer between them. So that's Ike. One of the sort of newer features in KSP is the ability to see the other planets and moons from, well, other planets and moons instead of just the map screen. Anyway, pretty sure that the video is going over a little bit. So I think I'm going to wrap it up here. Next video will be landing probably on some horrifically bumpy, unbalanced bit of terrain that will probably involve a rescue mission of Jeb. So, until next time, this has been KSP. Fly safe.